So as investors, I'm sure you know the problem with software these days is that people have to get out of their head something to show you. So the best, or the typical way these days this occurs is that we go out and we prototype. In fact, we might even start on PowerPoint. So we find some way of communicating our idea just to bring it to life on top of the business model that we might talk to you about. So what we've basically built, and it's a deep technology, so it took quite some time to make this actually work, is a way where basically it feels and looks and works like best-in-class prototyping, but you can keep going, you can do whatever you want, and you're not limited. You're only limited by what the web can actually do because of the way our technology works. So we're there to change the way that, we're there to change the way that people get to liberate their creativity. So taking ideas out of people's heads, sharing them with stakeholders, colleagues, investors, potential customers. So everything you expect and want out of prototyping, but without that off-ramp, without that being disposable, a continuation into market. And unlike other solutions in the market, we aren't constraining people because they're not programmers. We're not constraining them because the tools basically stop at some point. We go everywhere the web goes. The opportunity is basically every business is a software business these days, fairly much. I know that's not entirely true, but actually it's almost true. And in fact, competency about being able to understand software is absolutely a core capability that your teams need these days. And yet it's getting harder and harder. In fact, in a lot of the online forums I read, it's interesting how many CEOs are being told to go to programming school and learn to code, because no developer is going to go and work for them until they can see their idea, because they've got better things to do and they're not interested in working for the promise of a startup success. So more often than not, CEOs are saying to CEOs, go learn how to program, which is crazy because programming is about detail-oriented stuff. It's not about designing great software. So software is generally, as an industry, large, and equally it's generally failing business. So it doesn't fail everything. There's lots of things software is great at. It's an engineering discipline. All the behind-the-scenes things that you expect to work often do work. But when it comes to that wonderful problem of business people trying to articulate their idea in such a way that engineering resources can kind of put that together, when you've got these big-picture fluffy thinkers working with detail-oriented, I need the exact information, things can go a little haywire. So the industry has a huge issue. More often than not, we see businesses being limited by their software as opposed to it being one of their advantages. What Aviarc does is quite unique. We spent 8 years actually building a deep technology. What happens normally in software, for those that are not familiar, is ultimately code encapsulates the bits you interact with. So you write lots of stuff, you design structure and all sorts of other weird things you do in code. Ultimately, it pops out a user experience. The problem is when you want to change the user experience, you're changing code. And the code's always in control. Code's fine for being in control of things that are to do with code like algorithms. It's awful at user experience, right? It makes it really hard to change. What our technology does, without limiting that, is turns it around. We can encapsulate any code we want, but the UX is in charge. The user experience, the user interfaces are in control. So, for example, if you've gone into production with one of our apps and you want to go back to prototype, if you want to rearrange things for A/B testing, there's no code to change. You can do that pretty much immediately, be back in market. Or you can validate multiple things in market at the same time. So it's a true breakthrough in terms of we never actually take the user experience concept and write it into a programming language or codify it. We leave it as a user experience. It actually mirrors the way that HTML, JavaScript and the web technologies work. So we are completely in harmony with the way they think and work, and they're descriptive technologies, not code technologies. How we go to market, so we're actually an internal the runtime and the technology behind that makes this possible has been out as it was being built over a number of years. We have that, and we have some really good proof points for that. And internal testing now is the creator tool, which is you can now build this in a prototyping sense for anything you want to do. It's based on our experience using the technology and having to hand code in the early days. We've looked at everything we've built and we've said, if I were to have this tool, could I have done that without having to understand how to code things? And the answer has been yes in our reviews of our existing work. So we have basically the main product is the Aviarc Creator. So it's going to take on the prototyping market. We're going to be mainly free with a freemium model, but we don't expect to make and monetize on that actually as our primary source. We believe that our main way of making money is that once your prototype's finished, we will give you an off-ramp if you decide not to stay on. But that prototype is pretty much ready to go to market. There may be code work to do because there are some code things that need to be finished, but you'll be in market in maybe days, at most weeks, not months. So we believe that that's the value prop to businesses, that we charge them for keeping it. Why you don't want an off-ramp, it's just a case of a new technology working differently. It's powerful because actually it just does what the web does. So you can do anything the web can do. You can switch between prototypes and production. Where we leave the prototyping tool market standing is on the fact that we have complete interactivity, complete data, complete event modelling and so forth. So we don't limit. And the outcome here is about, communities being able to design great software, which is what matters, and not learning how to be programmers. We have lots of competition. This is a crazy market that's been around since the dawn of age. In fact, there's papers out since the early 70s, I think, talking about what's wrong and how to fix software development. There's a great paper on the silver bullet and why software development can't be fixed. There's lots of views. There's lots of technology. So currently the best in class is typically your prototype. You might start really simple with the mock-ups. Most prototype users tend to use two tools, something quick and easy, but then they can't do interactivity, so they tend to have to go to more complex solutions, which they find much more difficult to learn. We scale across all of those. It's simple, it's more complex if you want it to be. And then once you've actually worked out what you want, you then throw the UX parts of it to a software team who are going to turn that into computer code for some crazy reason, which actually, when you think about it, doesn't actually make sense. Turn code things into code, not UXs, right? Alternatively, you go the red way. I want it fast, I don't care, give me fast. So you can have process engines, you can have model-driven development, there's a whole range of technologies. Every one of them sacrifices the quality of the user experience in order to give you some speed. Typically, they just expose what the data gives you and some models. As I said, as we went through this, because the technology took so long, software doesn't want to work this way. We had to build an engine that understands how to work this way. It's all based on Java technologies. We have 8 patents pending, 2 about to close in the US. As we've been doing this, we've been pulling people on the various stages to get proof points. So now we have proof points in SaaS companies and banking. The major industries for us is usually business-driven software. So the SaaS market's one of those, and line of business in particular. Within enterprise has been a good niche for us. The market's huge. I'm sure you'll know the market's large, 75 billion on software web development. Break that down to web design, 20 billion. If you go looking then at products, you've got 3.4 million actual users of some of the design tools in the US, like Photoshop, for example, by the graphic design community. Interesting, when you drop into the prototype market, it's highly fragmented. So the top 4 only make 1 million users. Adjacent markets like the website building tooling market, Wix.com, Weebly and those have millions of users in comparison, suggesting or indicating very strongly it's an unmet market, there's an unmet market need. And certainly in the reviews you'll read that where people say, I've used a prototyping tool, I can't get as far as I want. A lot of people being suggested to go back to the likes of HTML and so forth. We've got a pretty straightforward go-to-market in a lot of regards. Meet that unmet need in the prototyping market, so go very much after that segment. Continue to improve that, and then expand reach, basically by proving the technology into adjacent markets. So that includes the RAD market in particular. And then we believe that actually all UX, all user experiences, all user interfaces should be actually kept in a model like AVARC and not turned into computer code. So we see a road to becoming potentially the de facto standard, as there are no other technologies that have this particular set of practices and so forth. Perfect.
Do you want to go? Or?
Yeah, I can just give a little bit of, I think I'll just start with some feedback. Usually I do the feedback part to kind of give a bit on your presentation. Thank you so much. I think it was a little bit too much information crammed into this. I was like, my head was almost hurting with everything you were giving us in information here. Despite that, I didn't really get who's your typical customer? Who do you...
So the actual users of our technology will be prototype tooling users, so application designers and the less technical software developers. Basically globally. So that the reach of these guys is online. There are basically a bunch of mavens you go to that write about it, and this community is actually a large online community. So word of mouth and pick up on that community is much more straightforward than other communities.
Okay, so you're not selling, this is not for businesses and enterprises. This is for developer community, basically.
Well, through entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs, obviously, that want a way of... So anyone that uses prototyping tools, so entrepreneurs as well, obviously. So the main three categories for us are entrepreneurs who don't have to build the deep technology but want to get their idea accepted. Application designers, so anyone from a freelancer to being in a team that wants to design applications. And what we call the non-technical developer, which is a citizen developer, and they're traditionally in lines of businesses. So that's where those three communities live.
See, that would have been nice to just get like,
Cool. That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah. At least that was for me. You are more into this thing, so you get it. Yeah.
Do you want me?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you know, you identified the issue that you know we've got, which is roughly once a week, someone comes into our office and says, and we have developed the world's first, drag and drop, don't require code, automated build, app development tool.
Yep.
So, so I'm listening to you, and I'm waiting for you to say, that yes, there are all these other people who claim that they can do what we can do, but what they're not really doing that we're really doing is X. Yep. So what is? Yeah.
Oh, so that competitor slide was touching on it.
Yeah.
So basically everything else constrains you. So in other words, they're template driven.
Okay.
So you take Wix as an example. Sites look beautiful. If you actually want to change the way they look, forget it. You have to actually start again and pick another template.
Okay.
Then you have model-driven development, which I mentioned some of those companies.
Yeah.
So you design your database,
Yeah.
It spits out screens. Nothing starts with going, how do you want it to look and how do you want to interact with it?
Okay. Okay. And and I know it's really hard when you're where you are to know what all the other what all the other entrepreneurs are pitching to us, right?
Yeah,
so it's hard for us to know who to believe, right?
And that's the feedback you get, right? Typically.
Right.
Yeah.
And then and you touched on that. You already have this experience where you've pitched this and people said, "I don't believe you."
Yeah.
So that's so the unfortunate part is that you're not quite there yet, right? That's what.
In terms of the communication, the pitch.
Right. Well, in terms of being able to put up customers that say,
yeah, absolutely.
I've tried these other tools that claim to do what Aviarc does, and only Aviarc, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Then the other side of that same coin, that is the skeptical investor side, is, okay, brilliant, I get it. I know this is some degree of holy grail. Right? Where code is generated by design rather than design generated by code. Right? As you say, we've been talking about this for decades, right? For decades.
Yeah,
so my first company was a software company. So I did 4 software companies before I became a venture capitalist. So I've been through this pain. So I've been through these debates. Right? So the flip side is every software engineer will then say, yeah, but there's a give up, there's a constraint, there's a trade-off. What is the trade-off of using your tool?
The web. So if the web can't do it, we don't do it. Right?
Okay.
So that's that simple. So for example, if you said what's your mobile strategy, we believe the web for mobile, but it's appropriate sometimes to create an equivalent version that's native because people want to download it from the App Store, right? So
Okay,
that's our constraint.
So you're not doing mobile per se. You're just doing.
We're doing mobile, but web mobile, right? So we're not doing native.
Okay.
Right. Which is almost, for most apps, as good, and in fact, cost-wise, is far better.
Okay.
But equally, sometimes you want a native version because it's, a download and some other bits and pieces.
So you're essentially, mainly you're generating HTML5 with some Java?
It's all HTML5.
It's all HTML5.
There's our constraint, all HTML5.
Okay.
Anything we can do.
Okay. All right. So now, because I saw you said something about Java, and I thought you were doing, I'm not sure if I missed. Okay. Well, duh. Okay. Now I get. Okay.
I think you could have, maybe just kind of given us this is our typical customer. This is a demo.
Yeah.
This is how it actually, instead of giving us tons of information and then you got into the numbers and what you're projecting in 2020 and, stuff like that. Maybe just kind of.
Some good customers right there.
Just kind of remove a lot of those things, clutter in your presentation, and take us through what's the pain of those typical customers that you have and how you're actually solving it in a step-by-step maybe demo or story or something like that.
And we do have custom stories, but I haven't got them listed.
Yeah.
Well, you could have skipped some of the other stuff.
lot of-
as
Yeah,
we're-
A lot of
I'm
stuff.
hearing is next time start story,
Yeah.
which is always a good bit of advice.
Yeah. Right. So,
Okay.
exactly. So,
I think
Okay.
that was it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good job.